Alright, so I moved my stack of knives over, got my splitting block, got my baton, got the lumber I'm gonna split down here. See if I can restoke things here just a tick. I'm not staying out much after I finish this, so I don't need to rebuild a big white man fire or anything. If you get offended by me saying big white man fire, go watch somebody else's YouTube channel. Get a couple new sticks on this bed of coals and stir things up a little bit, get down to the heat. That'll flare up on us in a minute and make us think the whole place is on fire. Good. Alright, knives. So if you're not familiar with batoning, you need a good piece of hardwood of some kind to use to drive your knife blade through whatever it is you're trying to split. So we're going to start with the Condor here. This is a sizable knife, should do pretty well. This wood is wet. Now what I like to do is stand the knife up on a block so that I'm not going to drive this thing into the dirt when I get done. I like to get a decent purchase point where I want my split to be. And then I take my baton and start slow, driving that thing in, okay? And then you're going to get on the outer edge of the blade, holding with one hand and driving with the other, drive that straight through. That knife is no worse for the wear. I'm split down into, if I was using dead stuff or dry material, that'd be ready to go right on the fire. So that's your Condor. It's a heavy blade. You can't expect to do anything but split well. I mean, that's just the way it's going to be. I am actually batoning first and then cutting sisal rope, just to show that the ability of these to go back and forth between tasks without dressing the blade up any. So that's batoning with the Condor. This knife is going to succeed. I can tell you already. I've used it some in the past. It's going to succeed. Move on here to the knife that I'm sure is not going to succeed in any long-term testing. That's that Winchester that we talked about, $20 Winchester. I haven't played with it at all. I haven't cut anything with it. I haven't done anything. This is actually the most work of it's seen right here sticking in this log. But I just know it's not going to succeed in any type of long-term testing. It will probably resort to living in the garage and getting used for junk, like cutting silicone off of gaskets and crap like that. So here we go with it. I am hitting much harder. My left hand is working harder. The blade's thinner. It's the most of the reason why. It'll get the job done, but it's just you got to work harder to do it. The edge does not feel bad even after that, though. Now then, little knives are surprising sometimes, but this is that Cold Steel Canadian belt knife. Okay? This is not at all what this knife is designed for. This knife is designed for a camp kitchen style knife. But, you know, you're out in the backcountry and you took your camp kitchen style knife because you were going backpacking and not camping. You had everything with you, and you find yourself in a bad spot. Is this knife going to be able to help you out of it? Now, I picked probably one of the biggest logs in the pile to do this with, which is my fault, but I'm going to get through it here. I'm just going to get a little bit more meat on the knife in it. It's starting to feel old. Again, I'm working harder than I have to with thicker knives, with something like the Condor or my Falkniven. But I'm getting through this, right down to the end. And that edge still feels awesome. This knife, I think, is going to surprise everybody, especially since it was a Amazon purchase for $10.99. All right, we've seen these bad boys work. I'm going to use the older one today. My surplus one is not going to get much testing done on it. It's been proven. I would carry it in the woods any day of the week. If I had the choice between it and my Falk Niven, I'd take my Falk Niven, but I'm not going to turn this one away just because it's what happens to be in the bag. So it's going to go off to the side, and we're going to test the older one that's been around and been beat up, been used and abused, and had edges put back on it and taken off of it over and over again. Same deal. It's a thinner knife. I expect to work more. Right through it, right down to the end, and no change in that edge at all. And the last of the lesser expensive, just because of the garage sale, the Cold Steel Recon. Let's give it a fresh piece here. This bad boy's got a knot in the end of it. I'm going to have to work hard to get through it. But if any of these knives can handle it, it's this one. Squirrel up there laughing at me, can you hear it? And I am into the knot. And right through it. This is a workhorse. Alright, so now I've done it with all the lesser expensive ones. I will use one of the more expensive ones. One that I've talked up a little bit here. Blade's not as long as the Recon, but I think you're still going to be pleasantly surprised. Long blades are deceiving sometimes. It's great for hacking with that knife. Great for blazing a trail. But if I get into camp and I need to do fine work, something I can manage a little better is going to be more at the top of my list of needs. So we're into another brand new piece here, and this one's pretty beat up too. Pretty gnarly. The reason I'm beating back on it like this is to get a little more of my blade sticking out, so I've got a spot to hit, because it is a shorter blade. Right through it. Really, you're not seeing any difference in performance on your end, I'm sure. But I can tell you, this arm worked less with these two than it did with, say, these two. This one, my concerns have more to do with the edge retention, which I can already notice a difference in, and the handles coming off. The Cold Steel, I'm just concerned about the thickness of the blade taken up to that abuse. So let's put these two away. Let's leave the Falk Niven out. And let's break into my package of sisal rope here. If you're a tree hugger and you hate things getting burned, don't watch this part. I throw this on the fire. Sisal rope's a good choice if you need something heavier than jute twine or something like that, but not nearly as heavy as, say, carrying paracord. It's inexpensive. You can get some good use out of it. It's a good natural cordage. Fairly strong for its size and weight. I mean, this is only rated to 122 pounds for 3/8 inch. That's working load limit. We all know those are safe estimates. The other great thing about a sisal rope is it's natural, so it's gonna burn well, just like jute twine will. So if you had it, you could break it down and use it for tinder. It's one of the reasons why I chose it for this. I don't carry it in my kit, and I carry plenty of tinder. Usually carry a lighter too. But here, I'm just taking a bite. There's probably, let's even this up a little bit here. I've got a handful on either side of that bite. So let's call that 10 inches maybe total. And I'm going to go right in, and I'm just going to pull away, and in one swipe try and get that cut. That's the goal. You want a knife that's going to cut that easily every time. So I'll get the next bite ready in my hand. I'm going to show you one more time with the Falk Niven, because this is, ooh, I slipped off of it. This is one of the good knives. Cuts right through it, as long as I do what I'm supposed to do, and it's set. And like I said, you can break it down here. And this will break down again into smaller pieces, about the size of most of your normal twine, and that breaks down into fibers. And we'll save some of these fibers for something here in a second. But then, you know, you get those all broken down, and you've got a tender bundle, is the short story for that. Alright, so let's put the Falk Niven away, put the big money toy away, and let's look at, say, this Remington. Good news story on the Remington is the serrated edge. Now if I cut this with the serrated edge, I'm going to get tangled up in it. But then when I let loose, it's going to cut right through. Every time the serrated blade will do that. It's one of the only real positives about serrateds, is they're great for cutting cordage and stuff. Okay, had to plug in. We lost our battery, so I'll do this again just in case. I've already cut once with this. The serrated edge, like I expected, really bit in well, and once it finally broke loose, that serrated edge pulls generally right through there. It's not going to do it now, of course. There it goes. But the straight edge, the non-serrated plain edge, takes a little more oomph and a little bit of sawing to get it through there. So that's the Remington, $20 Remington. Still got to spark a ferro rod. Big boy the Condor. It's all straight edge, and it's a beefy blade. And it slips right out. Doing some serious sawing on there, and not getting much anywhere. And there it is. Whew. That's work. Now, the Canadian belt knife. Right through it. It's the joy of a thin blade. Now this Mora, I'm going to tell you, this edge is gnarly. But we'll try it anyway. Let me tell you about this Mora, and we'll show you with the other Mora. It literally lived in the backyard for 2 years before I found it again. I'd used it outside in the garden for something and forgot about it. Here's the Mora that's actually been fairly well cared for. Used it a bunch in the woods with JD from River Rat, and have not sharpened it since. And it goes right through. If I'd taken better care of the other Mora, at least spent a little bit of time sharpening it before we came out here, it would have been a much better show for that knife. And finally, the Cold Steel Recon. Again, another beefy blade. I think it'll be a little different than the last one though. The extra blade length is going to give us some help here. A little bit of work, a little sawing, but we got through there. Got through there pretty well. I'll show you one other thing with cutting rope here. This is my my Tsunami. The good thing about it is the blade design. It's got a distinctive curve in it. I don't know if you can see it from there. But it's going to catch this rope in that curve and not slip out. Unlike the other knives, when I did this pulling and it slipped out of there, I mean, it's just as beefy, if not beefier, than everything else. And there's no slipping of that because of the distinctive curve on the blade. So that's cut and sisal rope. The last test we were going to do with all these was a ferro rod. So here I'm going to pull this off. This was the inside of a blast match, and I just put a lanyard loop through it. We're going to kind of do an eyeball judge of who throws the biggest spark. So I'll start here. Condor's on top of the stack. It's a pretty good spark. Nothing to slouch at. It's pretty decent. Our beat up Mora. This is an older model. Like I've said numerous times, does not have a real square edge on the back. And I'm going to do the thing that everybody cringes about, and I'm going to put it on the sharp edge. And I get a hell of a spark thrown off of it. So a little file work on the back of that blade go a long way. For that matter, to show you the military surplus model here, I get a good spark about every time with that. Much like my Rat 3 that I showed you, I've done the same epoxy trick with a ferro rod and mag bar on that sheath. And the cold steel, I'm not expecting much out of this. Again, it's got a rounded back blade on the back. Yeah, and I'm slipping off of that. But here on the back corner, at the sharp side of the blade, I did fine. On the blade, the edge isn't really showing anything. There's also the knurls here. They're not giving me anything either. So a little file work to square up the back edge of that blade, it'd probably do pretty well. The Remington, I imagine, is going to be the same boat, but I'll show you a trick with it too. This is curved all the way around except for this short little stint here in the back, and I'm getting just a little bit of spark off of that, tiny. Now on the serrated blade though, I'm going to get a hell of a spark every time with that serrated blade. I mean, that's just mean. I mean, it throws huge chunks off my ferro rod. Same with the sharp side of the blade. I'm going to get a good spark on it too. But nothing off the side of the blade where you'd normally want to use to save your edge. Cold steel. This ought to be good. Yeah, I mean, that's showering good sparks down there. And then, down to the standard, I've been using my Falk Niven. It's got a good square edge on the blade, throws pretty good sparks. So, if I were to rate those on sparking, I'm probably going to put the Condor and the Cold Steel at the top. Cold Steel at the top. Again, not everybody's going to find that deal though, that I did. So let's just show you real quick that sisal rope. I broke it apart and I'm getting into some fibers here. Broke a couple of pieces of it up. If you've got it for whatever reason, for a project or for whatever, and it's in your bag and you're using it for your cordage, which if you're looking to go inexpensive, it's an option, but it'll rot. It's not good for long-term use, but it is good for this. You know, a 6-inch piece of it tucked in your bag would be perfect. To use just like this. Of course it won't do it now. Smoking. Of course, I'd do a whole segment on the video with this and then try it and it won't work. Sisal's not as good as jute. That's all there is to it. Not for a ferro rod. You do this with a piece of jute twine. and you got a flame right now. Let's do the old standby though and show you that it's still going to be good tinder. And that'll take off. So, not good for a ferro rod, still good tinder. Just throw it in your kit if you've got it and keep it there for that use. So now talk about how we rate these things with those few tests that I've done. If I look at them overall and overall performance, the Remington up front, it batoned fairly well. It's just a thin blade. It did not throw any sparks at all, and did not cut the sisal rope very well at all. So that's two that it's pretty much failed at. So I'm going to set it off to the left as not so great. The Condor really only failed at one. Batoned wood really well. Did not cut the sisal rope worth a darn, but threw really good sparks. Set it in the middle here as fairly decent. Canadian belt knife, a little thin to baton wood. Cut the sisal rope really, really well. Didn't throw anything for sparks off the back of the edge, so you're sacrificing your edge if you're using it. So that's two that it failed at. It's going to go over with the Remington. And the Mora, I had to fight it through the sisal. That's more my fault than the knife's fault. Didn't baton real well. Didn't throw sparks real well on this one. The military surplus Mora, on the other hand, I've batoned with it. It suffers the same thing there. I'm going to put the Mora in the middle because I know what these other Moras are good for. This one is just suffering because of its age and its design at the time. The new Moras are much better than that one, so it goes off to the left. Which brings me to the Cold Steel Recon. Little tough on cutting sisal, did everything else really well. But like I said, you're not going to find a great deal on those. So if you're looking for an inexpensive knife, I would check used places like eBay, pawn shops, gun dealers, knife and gun shows, and see if you can find something like the Carbon V or a used Falk Niven that you can trade something else for. If you've got to go buy a new knife and you can't find anything like this, then I'm going to stand behind in the $20 range. The Moras are well proven, especially as of late. You can get wood-handled Moras. You can get these rubber grip handle Moras, the hard plastic handle Moras. You can get a new Mora out there. It's a little more money, has got a ferro rod built into the handle. Moras are great. They're proven. They're going to do well. And then I would throw the Condor in there with it too. So if I'm looking for a $20 knife to throw in a kit bag and leave in the car, Condor or Mora. If I know I'm going to be having to process a lot of firewood, I'm leaning more for the Condor. If I'm pretty sure that any situation I find myself in, I'm going to be doing a little lighter work, I'm going to go for the Mora. If you're looking for a really cheap knife just to have around in camp, I would even go ahead and throw the Canadian belt knife in there. As far as a camp knife goes, with light duty work, cutting vegetables, preparing meals and stuff like that, I really like that Canadian belt knife. So that's my opinions on inexpensive blades. There's a lot more out there that can be had, a lot more that can be tested, and a lot more that can be done with these. If you want to see anything else done specifically with these blades, shoot me a note, let me know, either an email at jljmonky, that's jljmonkey without the E, at gmail.com, or just post a response to this video and I'll see if I can accommodate in any way, shape, or form. Thanks for watching, and I look forward to hearing what you've got to say, and appreciate any feedback I can get. Thanks.